I'm going to give you the exact way that I train the trunk or the core with my elite level athletes. Let's get into it. Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Barner with Overtime Athletes, and for today's video, I want to discuss a question that I often get from a lot of you athletes. It's, essentially, what should I be doing for my core training, my ab training? There's a lot of different ways that you can skin a cat when it comes to that. I just want to kind of offer how I look at the trunk and what I'm trying to do with an athlete. So how am I looking at this of how I progress an athlete to ultimately transfer over and be more efficient, whether that be explosive in the rotational, be stable when they're going to make a cut, or simply just being able to utilize it as a stabilizer, right? So there is a unique progression. First and foremost, when I train trunk or isolate the trunk to train it, it's typically at the end of our training session. So I'll just get that out of the way. It's not to say that we don't use our trunk when we're performing a lot of our drills. Anytime we're performing a dynamic work, cutting, performing a sprint, loading the bar on the back, you're still all using all those intrinsic muscles on the spine, right? But what is the actual work that we do at the end of a session where we really target that trunk? So there's basically 3 phases that I progress through. Number 1, we want to have some form of stability with the trunk. So this is going to be a lot of anti-movements. What do I mean by that? This is going to be anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-rotation, and anti-lateral flexion, okay? So we want to basically fight weight to be able to maintain the position of the trunk wherever we load that resistance. My next movement, right, or my next progression in the next training phase is to then put that trunk or your core through the basic fundamental movement patterns of it. That's rotation, that's flexion, extension, and lateral flexion. So now I'm going to perform movements where I'm actually going through a longer range of motion and actually placing resistance through that. And then finally, if I were to look at the last phase, now I want to integrate that trunk. What does that mean? Well, that means I'm going to choose exercises that mimic the athlete or their sport. That's going to transfer over, remember, but I'm also going to place those same movements, flexion, extension, rotation, anti-lateral flexion, and I'm going to couple it with the lower half, right, or the upper half. And I'm going to transfer that energy through and have them mimic what they're doing on the field or court, okay? So static stabilization, basic fundamental movements, flexion, extension, rotation, lateral flexion, boom, to integration. So that should be your linear progression throughout your off season as an athlete to then go into your sport. And I promise you, you'll have a more functional, stronger trunk core, right? So you can utilize it as an athlete. Hey, if you're an athlete or coach who's interested in working with me, go ahead and check out the links down below and see what we can do to help you out. Talk to you soon.